Hello everyone, this is Dr. Sushma Tiwari, Department of English, Government Arts and Commerce, Girls College, Raipur. This is a third video on the novel The Edible Woman by Margaret Atwood, where you will come to know about the theme and motive of the novel and will continue in the fourth part. The Edible Woman is Margaret Atwood's maiden attempt at fiction writing that represents the women liberation movement. It is a complex piece of realistic fiction, an intelligent woman's guide to survival in the contemporary world. It is the first Canadian novel that anticipated the trends of feminism found in the later women novelists such as Doris Lessing and Toni Morrison. Atwood does not raise common question in this novel. She parodies various strains of feminism which were popular in the 70s. The novel was written in 1965 in the initial stages of women's liberation movement. It appeared in 1969 at the beginning of second wave feminism. The identity crisis of Marian, the main character, is like Kafka's original hunger artist in the tradition of hunger and starvation in his literature. Her refusal to consume food is an act of resistance that diagnoses Marian's eating disorder. It is a rejection of exploitative, predatory consumer culture. The novel was actually written in 1964-65 when the feminists were not radicalized enough to focus upon erasing gender inequalities and challenge male domination. To evaluate Atwood's feminism, one needs to see how she responds to. She envisages because the very title of the novel underscores the passive, subordinate, and vulnerable status of women. The women are viewed to a very basic menstruation, pregnancy, and lactation, which means women are perceived as more closely tied to nature. This perception has been used to distinguish women from men in Western culture and ultimately to devalue that women are incarnated disturbing mysteries of nature. A woman is rendered more desirable to the extent that nature is more rigorously confined, while women's reproductive functions are seen as emblems of their inferiority. Their bodies are also viewed as objects of beauty and desire. Women, in contrast to men, have been viewed as being ruled by their physical bodies and emotions. In general, women spend enormous amount of time and money transforming their physical bodies into ideal methods. Thus, the objectified body becomes a means of inferior bodies. In today's consumer society, traditional approach to the gender and gender identity are no longer seen in the consumption and general behavior. It has always been one of the prominent variables and segmentations in consumption. It is a convincing narrative of personal growth. The Edible Woman shows how female passivity and submersion in the traditional wife and mother roles can pose a serious threat to the very survival of the self, and how women and her images are molded, reshaped, and reoriented by men for men. The Edible Woman is structured like a journey of a woman called Marion, a researcher who gets acquainted with several friends during her journey in life. Her interaction with them brings in its wake a series of experiences, mostly unpleasant, because in every environment she becomes the ultimate consumer product, and her relations seems to be built on shaky foundations. It's true that women's physical beauty and sexual complementary with men make them particularly desirable in a commercial economy dominated by male relationship. At the time when the novel was written, the issue of food consumption and obesity in women had not yet attracted wide attention for our feminist concerns, particularly to the Western feminism of the late 20th century. Thus, Atwood lays bare the ruthless and hypocritical postures of patriarchy through the dramatization of identity crisis in the soul of Marion, who refuses to be the edible woman trapped in domesticity. The critical issues with which the novel is concerned are the consideration of various choices, alternatives, and options variable to working women in particular. The play presents a mixture of flavors and the bland starchy texture of hopeless domesticity to balance a arresting spice of illicit sexuality. The novel is either an optimistic celebration of female liberation or materialist feminist protest. The writer's manipulation of a shifting narrative point of view and her use of an unbalanced structure reflect a more complex picture of capitalism and female subjectivity. Indeed, Atwood displays a profound preoccupation with eating in her writings. In her novels, eating is employed as a metaphor for power and is used as an extremely intel means of examining the relationship between women and men. The powerful are characterized by eating and powerless are characterized by their non-eating. The Edible Woman has been analyzed extensively in terms of food, particularly in terms of feminist theories of eating disorders because food is served as a metaphor for family, religion, sex, gender, social position, and group identity. The principal metaphors appear across cultures but are organized locally as different people speak of different foods and equate them with specific elements of their lives. It is also a powerful metaphor for sacrifice, order, obedience, self-discipline, purity, generosity, and other key values in religions and ritual life around the world. It acts as a visual metaphor in many forms of art, and it can convey sensuality, temptation, and the arousal of desire, consummation, and fulfillment. The analysis of the politics of eating in all the novels provides a new way of reading and a new understanding of women's relationship to food. The part and parcel of a consumer society, Marian is faced with a choice of being edible to her husband and remains single as an individual and assert herself. Consequently, she chooses the latter and thus refuses to be the edible woman. It is through a series of hunting images, a sequence of dreamlike hallucination, which flicker through the mind of Marian. The novel presents a kaleidoscopic picture of her life. To make the picture more real, Marian is presented as a perfect foil to her friends, where, in owing to her coming into contact with them, she learns immensely of women's problems. Though the choices available to her are limited, she confronts several issues crucial to her. What it means to be a woman, what her situation is, and what constitutes femininity. Marian's identification with food is closely linked to a general theme of consumerism. Her character's relationship with food and her struggle towards self-determination, relation with her fiancé Peter are played out against a determinedly Canadian backdrop, the survival of the country's cultural autonomy. The Edible Woman, which spans a few months of Marian's life, is told in 3 parts. Part 1 is written in the first person point of view, explaining the life of Marian, who is engaged to Peter and experiences an acute madness. She is variously alienated by her work situation with co-workers, friends, and living arrangements. In part 2, which is the longest section of the novel, the narrative abruptly shifts into third-person point of view, and Marian gradually becomes more and more anorexia. Her anorexia is of a particular nature through which she loses the ability to eat anything. It is also haunted by the idea that she herself is being consumed, At the end of the part 3, Marian bakes and serves the edible woman to Peter as she rejects himself as a marriage partner. Ultimately, part 3 witnesses Marian's emergence from third-person anorexia space. She regains the ability to eat and has found out her identity. In the novel, Marian's identification with food is closely linked to a general theme of consumerism. Her relationship with food, her struggle towards self-determination, and her relation with her fiancé are played out against a determinedly Canadian backdrop about the survival of country's cultural economy. The motive of consumerism shows that the commercial and marital marketplace draws attention to distinctively Canadian pressure point. Marian works as researcher for a company which is a highly stratified three-tiered hierarchic market organization where all responsible and respectable positions are held by men. The three-layer represents three planes of reality, that is mind, body, and matter. The men are minds, the women are bodies. The company defines Marian's place as above matter but below mind. Her dilemma arises out of his situation because the top floor of the research organized is exclusively by men and is not accessible to Marian, while at the lower level are old housewives. This is the received categorization in patriarchal discourse. Marian feels on the floor above are the executives and the psychologists, referred to as the men. Women sit in the down floor as they are compared to machines. So, Marian cannot hope to be at the executive level, nor can she allow herself to be equated with machines. Her place is defined as above matter but below mind. She couldn't become one of the men upstairs, neither could she become a machine person, as that would be a step down. Marian has no freedom in her work and therefore she feels forbidden to do what she likes. She has no future because her job as a researcher cannot provide her with adequate pension after a lifetime of unrewarding work. She feels it to be an outrage on her personality. Marian's anorexia is symptom of her fear of the kind of future society offers to women. The structure of market research company represents the power distribution between the sexes. All men who are executives enjoy their private offices. All women share a large room and are supposed to take a human element, the interviewers. Since Marian has a degree in English, she revises the questionnaires devised by the men so that they can be understood by ordinary people. She is a mediator between masculine scientific jargon and the daily experience of the housewives targeted by market research. Marion's predicament typified the situation of women in male-dominated society and implicitly enshrines Atwood's criticism of patriarchal hegemony and gender-specific role models. Her identity crisis acquires a feminine coloration. She looks for choices in terms of alternatives to her present situation. She is juxtaposed with Ainsley, with whom she shares an apartment. They live together in symbiotic adjustments. They differ on the issues of marriage and motherhood. Ainsley works as a tester of defective electric toothbrushes in a company. She is a self-proclaimed feminist who is fond of paperback books, psychology, and anthropology. She develops hatred for marriage and plans to be an unwed. She says the thing that ruins families these days is the husbands. She wants children by choice, so she hunts for a strong, handsome, intelligent man as biological father for her child, and then looks for a father image. Though Ainsley offers this radical alternative to Marion's situation, she rejects that because bringing forth an illegitimate child is a cold-blooded act for which a woman has to pay her price. Marion, the protagonist, fairly sensible, intelligent young woman, decently liberal in her news, defensive about her own individuality, suffers from identity crisis. Marion's crisis, however, acquires alternatives through her colleague Amy, Lucy, and her friend Clara, and her husband Joe, and Ainsley, her flatmate. Marion closely watches and feels sorry for Clara, her former classmate during her school days, a natural blonde and everyone's idol of translucent perfume advertisement femininity. Though Clara gets married to her lover Joe, she is not practical but sensible enough to manage and run a well-organized marriage and motherhood. But Marion thinks about Clara that she could not control more mundane aspects of life. Marion feels that Clara is no longer the vegetable eater because Clara and Joe present a different fact altogether about love and marriage. Having 3 children, Clara is quite content to remain within the bounds of family, impractical and non-assertive as she is, leaning on Joe. A third choice for Marion is represented by the trio of perennial blondes who are Lucy, Amy, and Millie, who occupy the first basic victim position in survival. The position of being afraid to realize that they are victims in patriarchal society for fear of losing the privileges they possess. Marion rejects these artificial blondes because they invite victimization. This disturbing awareness is the direct result of a technologically advanced society which by its very advancement forces an individual into her fabricated roles, as Atwood has said in The Edible Woman. According to Marian, I knew Ainsley was strong, but she sounded so rational. I thought I would better go to bed before she had convinced me against my better judgment. Hence, Marian accepts neither the radical and extremist feminist viewpoint of Ainsley nor the submissive Earth Mother role of Clara, nor the self-destructive innocence of ignorance of the office virgins. Marian has been able to realize perceptively how Ainsley, scheme female, Clara, the Earth Mother, and Lucy, Emmy, and Millie, the office virgins have allowed themselves to be victimized as object of desire of man within and outside the legal framework of marriage. These three different role models fail to offer appropriate alternatives to Marian's identity crisis. So, she seeks male alternative in Peter, her boyfriend, to fulfill her objective, because Marian looks upon him as not only a rescuer from the company but also a rescuer from chaos. Peter is a law graduate, well known for his purchasable hobbies. Marian is drawn to him because of his pleasing manners and impressive way of talking and thinking. He is an ideal choice of her. He is of the view that she fits well into a conventionalized, even stereotyped image of a woman who, minus her chastity, recalls the mid-Victorian Ruskinian image of a passive and dependent woman. In course of time, Peter's narration of hunting spree shocks Marian. She discovers that Peter enjoys shooting and killing of rabbits and other animals mercilessly as a matter of pleasure and pride, and as well as is very fond of non-vegetarian food. Peter's narration of his hunting spree shocks Marian. She feels that he has treated her as a stage prop, and she begins to distance herself from him because she develops a kind of nausea for these very habits of Peter. A kind of disapproval and protest against all that Peter represents begins when she maintains distance from him. She chooses to eat very rarely and stops eating non-vegetarian food, as she is aware that one has to eat to live. Marian feels nervous as the date of her engagement approaches. She realizes that her interests and identity can never be safe and secure in the events of marriage with Peter. She begins to look at him as a destroyer of her individuality and identity. Her choice of an egg emphasizes the fragility of Marian's independence and sense of self-identified as something easily crushed and breakable. She is small and oral inside her shell and entirely dependent on her future husband. Her sense of victimization becomes acute after she comes across Joe discussing the after effects of university education on women. The conversation provides Marian with a flash of insight. She realizes that married life with Peter would be assuming the role of meek and docile women. The male gaze of Peter dominates and influences her appearance as she finds herself awarded by her fatal metamorphosis into Peter's life. As Peter begins to gain control over her in every aspect, her identification with the haunted and consumed reaches the precipitation point. She is made a mere decorative object and is reduced to insignificance. Marian's presence in the beauty parlor reminds the preparation of animals for sacrifice. Her hair is decorated like a cake, something to be carefully iced and ornamented. Marian is being packaged out of all recognition shows Atwood at her most satiric because Marian's head resembles a mutant hedgehog with a covering of rounded, hairy-like instead of spikes. The description of Marian is unquestionably humorous, but under the humor we detect attack on the absurdities of contemporary fashion. The imagery seems to be drawn from the chemical, industrialized, air-conditioned nightmare of the city life. Marian leans against an operating table and later returns to the doctor's chair to have the stitches taken out. Marian is taken back along the gently trying life of those who were not yet done. She returns from subject to object, consumer to the consumed. Marian loses her capacity to perceive anything. The situations are created by Atwood in which women burdened by the rules and inequalities of the societies discover that they must reconstruct themselves as braver, self-reliant person in order to survive. She feels more and more a victim, identified in her red dress as the perfect target when Peter's camera becomes substitute for a gun as the weapon. Thank you. The remaining part will be continued in the third video.